This episode is brought to you in partnership with the wonderful Docket. Mums, founders, we have a lot of paperwork, a lot of admin to manage. Docket is the can't live without it app that streamlines all your admin into one place. Store all your important documents and policies, track your subscriptions and expenses, set up reminders for bills, and stop around £120 a month leaking from your household. Search Docket in your app store. That's DOQIT and the code UPS050 for your discounted subscription. That's UPS050. Thanks so much to Docket. Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall, and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Welcome back to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I'm your host, Caroline Marshall, and it has been so long since I've done a solo episode. It feels like that anyway. Thank you for bearing with me, not just for you, but also to my team who've been like, Caroline, when are you recording these episodes? Life has been lifing, and I'm on this Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Programme, which comes to an end in 3 weeks, and there is a lot to do before it finishes. So I'm pretty proud that I've managed to sit down and get some time to come on the podcast. And I've actually coming on with something that I've completely not scheduled, so I'm now turning the schedule upside down, which the team will love and bear with me for. But I thought it was really relevant to talk about because a woman on my business program in my growth cohort has had some amazing press this week, and it's been on the One Show, which is brilliant, with her shoe business. And I actually wanted to talk about a little bit from a I had a brief stint in comms at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital where I might have dealt with the press a little bit, but they're quite willing normally with hospitals to, when you've got big celebrities in to deal with. So it's very different as a small business owner. So I wanted to come from someone who's never had a background in PR or in getting yourself in the press, but as a business owner, as a founder, have done quite well with bits and pieces in the press. I've been in Grazia a few times, I've been in Stylist Magazine. As a millennial woman, what a dream. Daily Mail, also all press basically is good press, by the way. So let's not judge the fact I was in the Daily Mail. Metro, The Independent. I don't know if I think I've been in the Guardian. I need to look at press, but I've also been in lots of B2B blogs as well for some quite great brands, products and software we use like Clockify for time tracking. So I just wanted to talk about how I've got into them, because I think it's really, I know a lot of people are really like, how have you got these great press links on your website? Or every time I get a piece, it's like, how have you got that? And I don't like to gatekeep. So I'm going to be really honest with you about how I've managed to get myself in the press. So first, it's about knowing what do you want to be known for? Actually, and a really good episode to listen to is like go back to Rosie, PR Dispatch, and listen to her expertise, because she is an expert on PR, by the way. But we talked a little bit about vanity PR, and so sometimes it's easy to get sucked along, and I think you probably have to go through this process and think you want to be in the newspaper, but it's like, actually, like, why? What purpose does it serve? So like, why do you want to be in the news? It's to build up the profile of yourself, your personal brand, your business, and you absolutely can be, but it's also just knowing why you want to be in there, and then also knowing you are newsworthy. What you have done, you might have a really, really brilliant story, and this is what I think is the first key part, is what is your story? Somehow with my story of redundancy, business owning, failing twice in the job market as a mother, has led me to this passion of the podcast, but also led me to start a business at my kitchen table, and I got redundant from the industry. All of these stories really matter, and I ended up having to take maternity leave 6 months after launching and being in neonatal care. All of this stuff ends up being your business story, but it also things like I had a background as a singer, and once upon a time wanted to be a singer and wanted to be a performer, and all of these can come into your story. Like, what are your stories that you can then relate to things in the press that's going on? What is your superpower, and what are your tips? So it's also knowing what would be your tips. I'm very into well-being. I can talk about well-being as a busy mother and how I've managed to fit it into my life. That sort of thing isn't directly related to upsource and outsourcing and delegating. It is kind of, but all of those things, like what can you be an expert in, and really leaning into, I am not an expert in well-being. I've not got any qualifications in that, but it is something that I've had to learn along the way. And so what you actually need, make sure you've got your images, make sure you've got a bio, make sure you've got a really simple thing that you can send over. So I always say, like, I'm Caroline Marshall, my age, I live. Where you live can be a really important part as well, especially if you live somewhere with loads of local news. Like, really think about getting yourself in local newspapers first. I think in London I kind of forget about that because London based ends up being quite national, but you end up, if you're in your towns, like newspapers you can be in where they really will want your stories as a local amazing businesswoman. So where you live can sometimes be really important. Some of the news sites I look on as well, they want people based in the north, in the southwest. Make sure you always include where you're based, because it might help you get included better. I always put that I'm a mum, I've got 2 kids, and that I'm based in London. And I always put the podcast and a link to my website, because so much of this as well is you want them to link back to your website. It might be you just have a small quote, but it's so powerful because it can link back to your website. So you've got your pitch ready. You know what you want to talk about. How can you pitch? I have to say, a lot of the news I've had has been when I've spoken to PR experts, is reactive PR. And you can get these from several places. So they're going to be links in the notes. I'll get lovely Steph to put them in. But there's Editorial, Pressflow. Also go listen to Jelena Pressflow. She's been on the podcast, another mum founder there. And a group called Lightbulb, which is on Facebook, but the links will be in there on how to join. Very low cost. They do, I think all of them you have to pay for, apart from Pressflow is free. So that's a great one to start with, free. But they're all places where journalists hang out and they're looking for stories. And the key is, and this is what I need to get past, it's another job. You have to be on it. When I've not had a bit of press for about a couple of months, 6 months, I suddenly realised, I should probably pick this up again and start working on it, because it's impossible to be on it all the time. I'm not on it all the time. I've not been on it for months. I think I might have a little quote coming out soon, and that was actually thanks to one of my team seeing it, and it was about redundancy. And they're like, this sounds like you. So it's also people knowing when stuff is about you. They're like, this is a story about redundancy. Oh, let's think of the Caroline. You've really got to be on this stuff every day. Journalists work so quickly to tight deadlines, and you've really got to help them out. So it's about, being of service to them, being really quick on something. If they want something and your story doesn't relate to that, but you think you've got an angle, probably don't reply to it. It is really annoying for journalists when they're like, I want a mum of 2 who runs their own business and started it in lockdown. And then if a man responds to it going, oh, I'm not a mum, but I'm a dad. And it's like, no, it's probably for a women's magazine. There's a reason they want mums, and things. And trust me, this happens all the time, because on Facebook, the Lightbulb group, you can see the comments, and it happens all the time. And it's like, no, you can be smart with an angle, but don't flip what they're looking for, because they're just gonna scroll past you and find you annoying. So always help them out and don't let them down. If you said you're going to provide a quote and then don't, or you're going to provide a story, it's very annoying for them, and they might not work with you again. So all of those places, this is for reactive PR. It's about finding the story and then sending over something, and keep it short and sweet. Do not send them loads. I mean, I am no expert, but I just said a couple of bullet points. What are they looking for? Are they looking for well-being hacks to do throughout your day? On it. This is me, this is why, and this is my well-being hack. And I give them 1. They might want more, or I might give them 2, but I'll be like habit stacking, which is been a real life case study of how I got PR, because I was like, habit stacking is such a hack. And one time, I think Waitrose Magazine, they were looking for, that was such a good win for my business as well. It was I think they were looking for tips on how to stay organized, or tips to stay on top of your inbox. I can't remember, tips to stay on top of messages, and I talked about delegating it, and it was a bit of a curveball, but she liked it, and I actually ended up getting a client through it who's been with us ever since. So been with us for years and recommended us to other people. So we've had some really good business from getting PR in Waitrose Magazine, which was brilliant. And my kind of customer in Waitrose Magazine of Upsource, clearly. Yeah, and I have done press releases. I do press releases for the podcast, and I'm looking at smaller things like Startups Magazine, letting them know when there's a new podcast out, going for industry news. So if you're an accountant, going for those financial magazines, getting getting started, you don't need to go for the big titles. You can vision board them. Still got Forbes on the vision board. Actually, I haven't. I should do that. Vision board what you want to be, but start small. Are there any blogs you can collaborate with? Like there's this one called Pally Talks. It's so aligned with my business because it's a forum for assistants. So places like that are really good for SEO and just getting your name out there a bit more. Like, you know, I've got a whole running list now of where we've been, and there's everything from small little niche blogs in America to the Daily Mail on there. And sometimes you've really got to think about that angle. So I have sent press releases out, and this is what I want to say is key, is you can find contacts online, you know, and I approach it like I approach entering awards. I just think no one is seeing I'm doing this. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And I think people really overthink sending out a press release or sending out a pitch. I was like, you know, the next door neighbours aren't going to see me sending this. Like, it's very, I think some people overthink it. And when I enter awards, I'm like, who knows? The judges know I've entered. Like, that's it. Unless I'm like literally telling people publicly, which sometimes I do. No one else knows I've done this. And so if it's tumbleweeds, which often it is, if nothing comes back, that's fine. But it's also knowing you're putting yourself out there. So I think when I first started UpSource, a bunch of like, it wasn't a press release, just like a pitch out to places. You know, still learning how to do this, let's face it, I don't really know what I'm doing. And Grazia came back to me because they remembered me. They needed straight away, this is how quickly they were working. They needed someone to talk about self-employed maternity leave. And I was like, boom, just done it. And I was there straight away to do it. And I ended up with a whole little piece in the physical Grazia magazine next to Mother Pucker. How amazing is that? And I'd only just started my business, and it was just because I'd taken a chance of sending it out, and it was nothing to do with what I'd sent out. And also another tip of mine is when someone is looking for something, and it might be that journalists are looking for something anonymously, that because the stories are really sensitive. I love this. In a world of AI, journalists still want real stories. They don't care if they don't have a picture next to it. They don't care if it's not your name next to it. They just want the real story. And that just shows like how valuable human stories are in this world we're going into of AI. But one time I was on Lightbulb, this group, and this journalist kept pitching out for a story and said, oh, it can be anonymous. And I saw it again come up, and it was very relatable to me. Between us on the podcast, it was about getting pregnant without planning it. And no, it's not something I want to put in the media or have huge like that, but she clearly wanted a story and she wanted to chat to someone about it. So I said, and she put it was the second time she put it up, and I was like, no one's coming back to her on this. I'm going to come back to her on this. And it was for Grazia, I think. Yeah, it was for Grazia. I was like, look, I'm happy to have a chat. I don't know if I want my name put to her. And she was like, no, that's fine. And we did chat, and I said, like, you know, happy for you to take the story. To be honest, I have no idea what happened to the story. I had no idea if they made it into something, but it was about getting pregnant unintentionally while using cycle tracking. And yeah, so, you know, I had a story relating to that, and and it ended up in a lovely story because that's how I got my first child. I happily talk about it on the podcast, just didn't want it in the press apparently. And then a couple of weeks later, I said, glad, hope that was of help to you. I've got this press release, you know, it's 5 years on since COVID. That's the recent press release I've been doing. 5 years on from COVID, my business is still going strong. I got onto the Goldman Sachs cohort. You know, it's a press release. It's just news at the end of the day if this interests you. And clearly the press release didn't interest you, but she came back and said, yeah, no, we'd love like 3 tips on how to start a side hustle. I'm like, brilliant. So got in the magazine, and one of my clients saw it the other day. And, it has nothing to do with my press release, nothing to do with the original story I was talking about with the journalist, but I helped her out in a way, and she was clearly like, okay, yeah, we've got this spot. Can you do this? And, it just shows by, being of service to others, helping others, it can come back on you. So that is my little tip as well. Sometimes if it's something you really don't want to talk about it, don't do it. But for me, I'm happy to talk one-on-one with someone about my story. I just didn't want to be in the press with this particular story, but still managed to help her out and managed to get a bit of press for myself. So, same, like one time, there are going to be things as well, like just be aware of, journalists often don't have control over the titles, which, you need to be careful what you want to be known for and what you want to talk about. So that's like my just wise words. I think that's something I've had learning with over the years. But I've been so grateful that there's been a lot out there. But it is because when there's been something I want to be known for out there, like with Press Flow, that was a really good example. I got on it really quickly. They were looking for talking about motherhood and the costs, and I'm happy to talk about rising costs in nursery and how that impacts mothers and work. And I ended up in an article with Michelle from Peanut, which is amazing. What a brilliant founder to have your name next to. And it was just from working so quickly and giving them what they need. Sometimes they want to hop on a call with you and you just have to drop everything and be like, yes. And if you can't drop everything, then maybe you're going to miss out on that one. And it's having that awareness of it. So some actions for you from today. I hope this has been helpful, but reach out to me if this resonated, if you want to find out more, but also check out the links below. Sign up to one. What's the worst that could happen? I also wanted to recommend to you, because I'm not a PR expert, I'm going to send you in the direction of them. So listen to the Press Flow episode with Jelena, listen to PR Dispatch with Rosie's episode, but also there's a fabulous podcast, a lady called Pippa, PR Made Simple. Check out Pippa. If you are struggling with your story or like struggling to craft it, go look at people like Pippa. They're really helpful for, getting your story together, finding out how to start with PR without that huge investment cost of an agency. So I hope you enjoyed today. Go follow, go listen to Pippa's podcast, go listen to past episodes, but also start writing it. Go find a journalist out there to pitch to, and what's the worst going to happen? They don't reply. Story of my life. Lots of people don't reply to me. So, thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please do leave a testimonial. It's so important to keep going. Thank you so much to Docket for partnering with us on this episode. Don't forget to use the code UPS050 for £5 off your annual subscription and save yourself around £120 a month on household expenses. Search the App Store for DOQIT and use the code UPS050. And go back and listen to my conversation with Docket founder Catherine Ann Reed, Season 3, Episode 19. Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.